Uh, this is the mission 48, organized by Habitat Marte, and today we will have the presentation of Ashwaria H about a concept about a launch center, how land pad will be operating Mars. Okay, thanks so much, Ashwaria, for your interest and your research about this presentation. You are welcome to start your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Julio, so much for giving me this opportunity. First, let's discuss our launch center. Even before discussing for our launch center, these are the things that we'll be discussing today in our presentation for launch center specifically. Before even diving into the Mars habitation, we need to look into some parameters in comparison with Earth and Mars. You can see that Mars is half the diameter. If you see, like approximately, it's half the diameter, and the gravity is one third. And one of the most important characters that we need to consider is that the round trip is 12 months, and also the temperature goes minus 225 to 63 Fahrenheit, where Earth goes from minus 128, which is an extreme condition even in Earth. Okay, when you see the pressure as well, the pressure is extremely low, and the composition of atmosphere is mainly composed of carbon dioxide. But the best thing about habitation in Mars is that the length of day or sol in Earth and Mars is relatively the same, which makes it very helpful for the humans that are staying in Mars in regards of psychological parameters. Coming to how the mission will work, so the mission starts with a Mars ascent vehicle. So, imagining that we are taking a departure from Earth, and then this SLS supposedly will leave the Earth atmosphere, where it will go around and around in the Earth parking orbit, and the mission lasts for about 300 to 1400 days. Like the entire mission can take to reach 300 to 1400 days. Like when it escapes the Earth parking orbit, it enters into the Mars parking orbit, and like within zero point 0.5 days, we can reach the surface of the Mars. When we reach surface of the Mars, in the surface, we are hoping to stay there for 2.5 hours, years to 3.3 years. And again, using the same vehicle, when I said it's a Mars ascent vehicle, we are using the same vehicle to descend into the Mars, and from that atmosphere, we'll also be exiting the same mission later after when we are done. So the MAV then circularizes into 250-kilometer orbit. Okay. So the way that we are looking into our inner design and the infrastructure of our launch pad is that the launch pad will be at least 5 to 10 kilometers away from the our habitat. So supposedly, as I showed previously, the lander will land on the base, which is in the Mars outpost, and then from that Mars outpost, our habitat will be 5 to 10 kilometers far. Okay, so the whole idea is that will have this habitat will use this habitat you will this vehicle will be used both for ascent and descent for the travel to the orbit. Okay, in that orbit we'll have one more vehicle which is similar to ISS, which is International Space Station that we have, and that the the crew will be transferred from these ascent or descent vehicle to this sort of international space station, and then they'll travel back to the Earth. So if you see a typical hybrid Mars ascent vehicle technical maturity, you can see this. You can see the subsystems here, which are orbiting sample. There is also a nose structure here, and then we consider the avionics, the prop tanks, and the propellant components and the hybrid motor. Uh, Here you can see the hybrid motor. Coming to the next, one of the things that we keep ignoring is the traveling inside the from like launch pad to the habitat itself. So for that we can use Mars crew exploration rover. And also coming to the Mars outpost where the launch pad is present, the infrastructure will have a physically to get like the rocket to the pad. Here it is the vehicle to the pad road or rail or crawler. It also needs to have a structure to lift it onto the tip or up the pad. We need also for it to hold and release it cleanly on launch whenever we need it. We need to also have safe distance for propellants, because if there's any harm with the propellants, it will be very disastrous accident. We need to also store the hazardous pyrotechnic etc items away from the distance of the habitat also, and also the launch pad. So we also need to look into a safe location for the emergency team. We need to look into emergency system for the pad as well, since this is our one of the ways of exiting the Mars. If anything goes at all, we need to be extra careful, and we need to keep all our equipments on all our instruments double in the range. Okay, so there should be an emergency escape for crew and or support staff at a safe distance. Okay, so also one of the other things that we can also install in this launch pad is a lightning rod. Okay, how does this work? So basically, in this is one of the images that I've taken from the NASA. So NASA hopes to bring back first soil that is there. So even if we don't launch, like even if we don't exit Mars as a crew, we will be sending back samples for the Earth base to test different things, because we cannot have. We won't be having the entire techniques and entire instruments very feasible in Mars, as much as we can conduct different sort of experiments in Earth. So these rovers will catch the samples, and then they'll be sent through the Mars ascent vehicle, uh, and the vehicle grabs orbital sampling and returns to the Earth. Okay, now coming back to different zones of the launch center, the landing zone will have a rendering showing landing zone nearly out of the background, which, as I said, it is 5 to 10 kilometers far. This crew is necessary to protect the assets and crew at the habitat site from impact of bad landing or explosion. Crew would land here in the descent or ascent vehicle, and at the end of their tour, launch from the lower zone in the refueled DAV, which is descent vehicle. Although the first integrated habitat might land at the base site, all the other payloads and the crew descent ascent vehicle, we have to land it away from the distance. So the entire idea is for us to have all our instruments, everything before even we think of settling in the habitat. So also we need to look for nuclear mission reactor in a crater, because as you know how much fuel it takes even in Earth for anything to be launched, we need a lot of fuel, and also for fuel for living there as a habitat. So we need to have a power supply that can operate throughout the soul 100% of the time, which is why we are hoping to have a technology of nuclear fission reactor in a crater. Another thing, so this crater would be creating 100 kilowatt. And another thing that we are looking for is like the control facilities outside the crater for the energy these things. And also we are looking at in situ resource utilization production plant. We're also looking for propulsion plant where we are looking for we are developing fuel for the propellant, and we're looking at inflatable greenhouse. So the number of quantity of astronauts that we require only for the launch center, as I researched, it is 4 people at the most, but 2 at the least. During normal operation, 2 crew members reside inside each of the habitat modules that we have. During the contingency operations, that when there is a accident or there is a virus outbreak, that as we have been addressed to as a challenge, we need to have all the 4 crew members inside our habitat itself with minimal contact outside and to the other facilities in order to prevent them from preventing this virus outbreak. And these include a chief commander, a mission commander, and 2 people who are either technicians or engineers in the mission pad. So the chief commander basically manages the entire launch pad, launch facility, the propellant plants, and the different nuclear reaction crater. Okay, so basically, this chief commander will be the main point of contact from our facility to the other facility and the entire habitat that's happening. The second one is a mission commander. So this mission commander will be the person who will be controlling all the missions. They'll be planning all the missions as to how when to launch. Do we require any instruments or any resources from Earth, or do we need to send our own these things, our own instruments? So this mission commander has main agenda of planning all the missions and conveying it to the every other facility. Apart from these 2 of them, we need to have 2 technicians or engineers who can work along with the mission commander and the chief commander for the proper functioning of our facility. So coming to the resources that is required for 1 week, here we need to have at least 3000 calorie per day, assuming that we are working really hard and uh, we are working day to night, like 12 hours a day. Here you can see very surprisingly that we need 1.831 kg of food per person per day. And when I say that might seem a lot, but the thing is, these in also include the packages that the food come in, and the packages that the food will be disposed in. So the entire thing will be 1.831 kg per person per day. So other things that we can think of are the safety for the safety equipments for the crew itself can be 39 kgs. Coming to the resources for 1 week, we also need to consider the water intake. This is one of the missions, this is one of the ideas where we are looking for dual water supply per kg per person per day. If you look closely, there is a waste processor which recycles the water and goes to person and to the plant. So first it comes from the atmosphere, hoping that it's 60 kg per person, and goes through a process of condensing. Then there's a fish pond, then there's a screen, and then it goes to the plants and various other activities. Coming to resources that we can possibly generate or the necessary technology that we require, we require technology development for avionics, where we need to have component based software architecture. We need to have like our own system. We need to have our own navigation system. We need to have our own autonomous vehicle system management. We need to have all equipments which are modular, which means it can be developed into something beyond very easily. We need to have in space timing and navigation for autonomy. So if a crew decides to walk out of the facility, which happens very often because our launch pad is away from our launch center, we need to have some sort of navigation system where we can travel very easily. Also, we need to have a target relative navigation system. We don't know what sort of environment we are dealing with, so we need to be very clear with, are we facing any storm? Are we facing any sort of like mountains or any craters that we need to be avoiding, like the hazards that we need to avoid. Coming to the communication and tracking, we all know that it takes about 8 minutes just for like a signal to pass to the earth command, earth base. So which means we cannot rely on earth for quick reactions, or like earth base to be managing everything for Mars. So we need to have our own high data rate forward link, which are like the flight communications. We need to have high rate adaptive interworked proximity communicators. We need to have delay tolerant network centers. We need to have optimal communication, not just with the earth base but also within ourselves, because it's very important. Suppose like everyone's traveling outside, and we can like we can address any sort of issues. We need to have optical communication, optical ranging, and RF imaging system. Coming to the life support, the technologies that we need should be highly reliable, environmental control, and life support system for habitable volumes. We need to have high pressure oxygen. We need to have CO2 removal, because when we started discussing in the beginning, we talked about how 90% of the Mars atmosphere is CO, filled with CO2. And also we need to look into universal waste management system, because that's one of the categories that we cannot just dump our waste. It can be hazardous not just for like the environment of Mars but for ourselves as well. And then coming to the cryogenic propulsion, because there'll be a often launch and descent, and there'll be often traveling, interplanetary traveling that will be happening. We need to have propulsion system at all times, even to send like our loads, or for the even for the crew to travel back. So we need to either have like a pump fed LOX CH4 propulsion, which is very common, that is being used in all the rockets right now. Or we can have integrated pressure fed LOX or CH4 reaction control system. Apart from this, we'll be having extravehicular activities where we'll look into advanced spacesuit, which can sustain itself outside in the Mars environment without any requirements from with like for a long duration and without any other requirements. We need to also look into dust mitigation, because one of the major problems in Mars is dust storm and radiations. Coming to biomedical countermeasures, we need to look into long-term exposure to microgravity, because the microgravity over there is one third or less to ours. And coming to in situ resource utilization, we need to establish systems where it can extract different materials and different minerals for our resource utilization. We need to also think about power as I said, we can have nuclear fission reactor crater, or we can have fuel cells. We can have solar arrays. But the problem with the solar arrays is again that not every part of Mars will be getting sunlight as well as we do. So we need to really think about what sort of power system that we need and where do we need it as well. Coming to the thermal system, since the temperature varies very vastly and very extremely, we need to have a thermal control system. So we need to have a fluid management system as well. So for long-term storage, we can have in-space cryogenic liquid acquisition. We can have microgravity, mass gauging, thermal control for heat dissipation or heat rejection, and thermal protection systems as well. Coming to the necessary missions or technology for the operation of facility, one of the major facilities that we need is the extravehicular rover to travel back and forth from the facility and the launch pad. And most of the technology that we'll be having is autonomous. Assuming it is autonomous, we are relying a lot on the technology and like the machines more than ourselves. And we need to also have spacesuits which are planned for Martian this thing. And coming back to other things that we'll need, since we need to extract resources from the Mars surface, we need to have a drilling mission as well. Complete so the complete course for oxygen in life support system is something that we require and need to develop as a technology. We need to have a propellant protection for robotic and human vehicles. So we already are hoping to have a propellant plant away from Mars outpost and away from the habitat, but we need to have it as well. um, Coming to this, yeah, this is very interesting. So this is one of the proposed ideas of how we can convert the carbon pollution to carbon neutral fuel. Okay. So basically, as I previously mentioned, the Earth atmosphere contains 95% of carbon. So this becomes very important to develop technologies like this, which can take the carbon from the atmosphere or like the different places and convert it into syn fuel products that we can use it for our own generation. Coming to the possible activities need to be applied for as daily lives. Uh, One of the things that we can do is we can have daily routines where we are only working for probably like 10 to 12 hours instead of like 16 hours, because it's in a long term it affects us psychologically. And another things that we need to take care of is exercise. We need to be doing exercise also to maintain our body density and to cope up with the microgravity that we are going to be experiencing. We need to talk of personal hygiene. Although it is very although the situation might be compromising, we need to look into a long term proper cleansing in privacy and changing clothes. We can also look into the activities for daily lives in greenhouse. We can keep the crew busy. They can have their own habit of gardening, or they can conduct their own experiments, or they can have their own personal timings. So humans in Mars must have an adequate diet. It should be nutritious, and that's also one of the possible activities that we need to be looking through. Few people can be concentrating on how much how much food and all we need. The importance of psychological aspect of food needs to be addressed in the day lives of the mass. The problem here is we won't be consuming food in the normal way, and it obviously has like a psychological factor of, you know, the smell, the taste. So we need to address these aspects of the food and water, and like the personal hygiene and daily activities. We need to give astronauts their own space where they can, and their own timings where they can do whatever they want to do in a regular basis. So the protocol for safety. Here, I'm mainly trying to address the psychological and mental well-being of the crew. The problem with a long-term missions like this is it's very, as I said, it can take up to 2.5 years. It will obviously have sociological and psychological problems in long-term missions, and it becomes very crucial for any mission that the well-being of the crew members should be there. So for that, we can take different measures as having a regular database of how a person is feeling. We can have a daily report. We can have a contact with the some psychiatrists might be tracking them regularly, and they can also have like a one-on-one private conversation with the psychiatrist. These are some, when asked question for 6 astronauts and 13 space employees, the kind of needs that they needed. You can see that they were, although looking for an habitable area, they were also looking for privacy, which is not very common when you look into a facility or a habitat in particular. But this is something that we need to really address, that privacy needs to be addressed, and people need to have like their own pod where they can do what they want to. There are obviously stressors of long duration space flight. The physiological and physical stresses can be of radiation, absence of natural time parameters, and altered circadian rhythms, decrease in exposure to sunlight, adaptation to microgravity, sensory or perceptual vision, or sleep deprivation. As I spoke earlier, the psychological the psychological stresses can be isolation and confinement, limited possibility for abort a rescue, high risk conditions, and potential for loss of life. Although how much ever we can train our crew, ultimately we are humans and we need to address all of these factors uh, properly before establishing a complete uh, long-term mission or long-term habitation. Coming to the protocols for micro production, as we already told, we'll be having uh, greenhouses, and obviously we have other facilities as proposed by my other colleagues. But one of the few things that we'll be looking through is fuel production on Mars. So this is a picture of how fuel was produced in mission of DRM, and how the cultivation area is developed according to like a Lockheed Martin company. Coming to 3D printing, it's very interesting how much the 3D printing has imported, has improved. You can see here that like we can 3D print our own habitats, we can 3D print our own instruments, we can 3D print anything and everything. And we need to have those equipments as well, where the equipments which can 3D print entire everything. So that's also one of the technologies that would be needed. So that's all for this video. Do you guys have any questions?